Welcome to our Into Action Professional Learning series. In this session, you'll hear from myself, Elaine McHenry, part of the Inspire Learning team leading on listening and talking, as well as from Lorna Dolan and Kirsty Banks, sharing their expertise on early level and using digital tools. You'll also hear from a member of the Inspire digital team signposting you to some extra training in the use of digital tools across first and second level to support listening and talking. Today's session will focus on developing and embedding the skills of talk in learning. Before we begin though, take a few moments to reflect on the quote on the screen. To what extent do you agree with this, and what could be the contributing factors to not all children just picking it up? If you wish to share your thoughts as a wider group, pause the video now. If not, just continue with the session. The QR code on the screen will take you to a file of resources that will support this session. Take some time to scan it now and continue when you're ready. At the end of last session, you may remember you created a call to action plan, thinking about introducing talk tactics using sentence stems and a class idea to try them out, and to introduce an exploratory talk type into your practice. Pause the video now and take some time in your group to share your experiences with this. Share what went well and support each other with any even better ifs. Continue when you're ready. Just a quick reminder that each of our SBC Way professional learning sessions will follow a similar format and will include some core input, some reflective questions and follow-up activities leading to new understanding. We hope to make these sessions as interactive as possible. Across this session, we'll remind ourselves of the 4 capacities and the 4 contexts for learning through a listening and talking lens. We will share with you a variety of talk-rich tools and experiences to support the learning of listening and talking that can be incorporated at any level, which will support you to embed Oracy skills so that you will see a measurable level of success and progress in learner engagement in and contribution to discussion, as well as learners demonstrating deeper thinking alongside the skills of the Oracy framework. We'll share with you some digital tools to enhance the teaching of listening and talking and provide signposts as to where you can find more training to brush up on your own skills in using these tools. Finally, we'll spend some time on the SBC Way Planning Toolkit and how it can support planning across the curriculum.
Planned Talk does exactly what it says on the tin. It is part of your daily, weekly, termly plan for listening and talking progress. Daily opportunities at all levels need to be planned to support learners' understanding of the talk guidelines developed by your school. Other planned aspects could be appropriate for age and stage of development of learners in your class. At early level, we would be introducing talk partners or small groups to practice talk guidelines and to develop talk tactics. For first and second level, you would be using a variety of talk tactics to develop confidence in Oracy skills. Over a term, you would want to know where your learners need more practice and then plan accordingly. You can use the progression pathways or the assessment on a page resource to determine areas where your class need more support and to develop your planned talk sessions accordingly. Planned time over the term could include quality learning conversations with learners, which will enable you to both plan for individuals and to assess how the child can share their thoughts and ideas, how they can talk about what they think they need to do next, and you can co-create a learning target and goal. You can see that to achieve this, you will have to monitor and review your daily timetable to allow for planned talk to take place. You will need to use the progression pathways or the assessment on a page resource to ensure a clear focus to your weekly and termly plan so that you can monitor children's progress. Planned talk times do not need to be isolated and an end in themselves, and they will cover both aspects of talk categories, exploratory, and presentational. You can easily integrate talk times, partners, trios, groups into any lesson throughout the day. It could be as part of a starter or as part of a plenary within a 4-part lesson model within first and second level. At early level, you can build in time to stop and share what children have been learning or talking about in their play in different areas of the room. This is best done towards the end of an open play session, so you're not going to interrupt the flow of play and the learning in the room as it's happening. Within all levels, learners and teachers can make very good use of digital apps such as the voice recording or video app on the iPads to enable children to record their discussions, thoughts about their play, ideas around a construction project. You can look at this as part of your assessment around the child's presentation skills or as part of the Oracy framework. Remember, this can also be shared on Shobi as well and will ensure learners and families can see the development of talking and listening skills for themselves.
We're never short of opportunities for listening and talking, and Curriculum for Excellence and our SBC Way Breakthrough Curriculum place learners at the heart of our education system. As we know, at its centre are 4 fundamental capacities. These capacities reflect and recognise the lifelong nature of education and learning and are aimed at helping children and young people to become successful learners, confident individuals, responsible citizens and effective contributors. Through listening and talking, our learners can acquire knowledge, think critically and develop personal values and understanding different perspectives, enabling them to develop skills and attributes that they will need to succeed now and in the future. There are many opportunities to develop the 4 capacities through listening and talking. For example, using what you hear to extend knowledge would contribute to being a successful learner. A confident individual would share their views and opinions, while, as a respectful citizen, our learners might use what they hear to make informed decisions and contribute effectively by choosing the most appropriate way to speak to an audience. This is a task that you could take back to your classroom and ask your learners how they think listening and talking helps support their development within the 4 capacities. As we know, our curriculum is defined as the totality of all that is planned for our children and young people, from early learning and childcare through school and beyond. This totality can be planned for and experienced by learners across the 4 contexts for learning. Opportunities for listening and talking across the 4 contexts are abundant.
A few examples of listening and talking across the 4 contexts at early level might be some of the following. Within interdisciplinary learning, children could be watching and listening to a documentary to find out more about the birds that they've spotted in the local woodlands, which they can then discuss. Children could use exploratory talk to observe and match birds that they see with pictures from a bird book while they're outside. Role play areas should contain interesting materials, objects and resources to allow for creative, imaginative play, which would become rich in talk opportunities as children share their role and enact what they see and hear in the world around them. We can provide opportunities to demonstrate to children how to make Play-Doh and then provide a recipe so that children have autonomy to make their own and show that they can listen to, understand and follow through with the informational instructions, which have been shared and demonstrated so that they can complete the task independently. All of this is part of progressing the child's executive function, and this is discussed within Realising the Ambition. We also need to regularly engage children when outdoors, in the playground and beyond the gate, in discussion around what they see, what they are thinking and talking about while certain environmental print is there. Within curriculum areas, children might be listening to hear and recognise new phonological sounds, and recognising these within songs, rhymes and stories that they hear daily. As part of the ethos and life of the school as a community, children should be sharing books with family, Perhaps you could record yourself reading the story of the week for families to share with their child, giving opportunities for family engagement and for family learning to take place. Taking part in school assemblies gives children a key role in presentational talk opportunities. Children should be sharing their personal achievements to a group or to the class, and this is another opportunity for presentational styles of talk to take place and to fulfill our duty to celebrate the wider achievements of every child in our class.
You've heard from Walmer some examples of how the four contexts can be incorporated across early level. Here are just some suggestions as to how they can be incorporated through first and second. For example, standing for election for a position within school, creating a school news podcast, sharing prior and new learning or knowledge, or talking to convince others, all fit within the four contexts for learning. Pause the video here and take some time to work either as a school or with a stage partner to think about how you could incorporate listening and talking into the four contexts within your setting. To access the document, use the QR code, then click on File to download a copy. Continue when you're ready. There are many digital tools and apps available to us to support the four contexts of learning. If you need a refresh of skills, the Inspire Learning website is the place to go. Here you will find quick guide sheets and short videos to support your own skills in using these tools. Kirsty will now share with us some of these apps available from an early years perspective, but remember, all apps can be used at all stages.
So just to go through a few digital tools that can support Oracy at early level. To support listening, practitioners can use the Voice Memos app to record sounds around them. It's essentially a dictaphone app, so it might be their voices, the sounds in the environment, or you might go on a walk and capture some of the sounds that you hear on the walk. GarageBand can also be used as a voice recorder, and it actually has a voice recording option where you can use filters so children can distort their voice. They can speak and sing songs into it and play with the filters it has. It's got things like from a chipmunk to a robot. GarageBand also has a live loops option where you can play with live loops and the children can play with those sounds as they listen to them along to the beat. They can choose to play one sound or multiple sounds on top of each other, multiple beats. You could also find an online rhyming game on the smartboard. Might be Top Marks or something like that, and that also supports children's gross motor skills using the smartboard, enables them to use it together, collaborate on it, and crossing that midline when they're stretching to tap all the parts of the smartboard as well. A few ideas to support talking. Practitioners could use the speech to text on the keyboard. If you see here, I've circled the microphone. If you bring up the keyboard, tap that microphone, and the children can speak into that and it will type the words that you're speaking basically. And it does mean that the children have to speak clearly, so it recognizes their words and they have to separate their words and understand about word boundaries, so that can be helpful. Keynote Live allows you to superimpose a background and has a live video, a bit like this essentially, and you can take away the background, put a photo in the background, and the children can talk about their favorite toy or their weekend or their holiday with something in the background, and you can screen record that to capture that as well. In the Clips app, you can use emojis for them to talk about their feelings, so they can use the emojis as prompts and maybe make the same faces as those emojis as well, and record a video of themselves talking about that emotion and how it feels.
Thank you, Kirsty, for reminding us of the digital tools that can support an early level. As well as through the four contexts and the four capacities from Curriculum for Excellence, there are many ways to promote and evoke listening and talking and develop oral communication skills through both exploratory and presentational talk in our classrooms and settings. We'll take a more in-depth look at some of these strategies and the oral communication benefits they bring.
Thinking skills in Oracy are interconnected. Children's ability to think carefully about the language they're using and tailoring it to their purpose and audience is a key part of Oracy. Explaining and thinking and learning supports the development of critical thinking and cognitive skills. Through the use of invitations to learn and provocations, we can enable young children to build their confidence in listening and talking skills. This is achieved as learners interact with their environment in the spaces and experiences on offer. They will also get it through the interactions with other children and the adults in the room. Learners will naturally build their thinking, communication and language skills in this way, especially if it's well planned and includes children's interests. There are many types of provocations we can use to promote these skills, and here are a range of some examples. Using photos and pictures is a really simple way to provoke thinking and discussion. There are lots of areas within your continuous provision of play spaces that can benefit from the addition of images to extend children's play and the subsequent learning that takes place. Photos are also a great resource to use during a more structured talk activity. A photo or picture that's in line with the children's interest is a great starter. Or it may be a photo to provoke discussion or questions about an ideal pathway that you're going to be exploring. Books can provide an enhancement to many lines of inquiry, from extending imaginations to providing areas for loose parts play. Consider how you could use a story as a provocation to explore the actions or feelings of a character, or to explore the concept of a story. How could this be used to provoke further discussion and challenge in the classroom? The seasons. Children are always fascinated by the weather and the changing seasons. The seasons are relevant to the children and their everyday lives as they're able to experience the sensory elements of the changes. What could you set up in your continuous provision to provoke discussion around the seasons? Natural specimens. Lots of natural specimens can be found in the environment. Children find natural specimens fascinating, and when children show interest, we need to find ways to invite other children to share in the wonder and provoke further thinking from the specimen. Learners can be encouraged to form questions such as, where did it come from? Why is it that shape? And I wonder why. Objects. There are lots of objects and materials that we can use to provoke further thinking and discussion. In Primary 1, these could be added to a talking tub or curiosity cube and might relate to an ideal area, or simply be something you've found out which might encourage curiosity around an object. It might be an object a child has brought in and finds interesting. You can use simple provocations in maths to provide opportunities for children to reason, ask questions and think critically. For example, can the small pot hold 100 of anything? Expressing mathematical ideas orally helps children to build communication skills. It can also form an important part of developing understanding of mathematical concepts and the ability to reason mathematically. Adults can also model generic sentence starters, which can help give a structure in which children can express their ideas. Examples might be, I agree because, I disagree because, if I know this, then I know that. Questions. Extending thoughts and provoking discussion could be as simple as asking a question. The more relevant and meaningful to the children, the more engaged and able they will be to respond and have a discussion. Through the provocation or invitations to learn, we are giving children lots of opportunity to not only answer questions, but to form and ask questions too. And all of this is key to what we're trying to build in Oracy. You will see there are some links to iPad skills later on in this session. We've looked at the various elements you can use within the early level planned talk opportunities, but these can be equally relevant to first and second level planned talk. The examples that we'll use here on this slide will be aimed at first and second level learning opportunities. In early years, we use the term provocation. This is commonly used in ELK settings to describe setting up a space, a tough spot, or a tabletop with a variety of objects, photos, sensory experiences that are linked to our intentional planning. And then we see what the children do with them. We listen to the talk and observe how they respond to the prompt for learning or provocation. In most of the examples we'll look at here, you will be observing the exploratory talk taking place around the prompt. You will be noticing turn-taking, listening, vocabulary used, the inclusion of others in the talk. These observations will scaffold how you develop the Oracy skills moving forward for your class. This first example shows a picture of the terracotta warriors. You could place this with some clay and tools and then observe what the children talk about as they look at the objects. Perhaps get them to write down through the talk their observations and questions and get them to put it on sticky notes. This could be then basis for a possible development of an IDL based around ancient civilizations. You could place some prompt questions as well to stimulate discussion and what the children notice. Children can make use of digital technology and record and voice note their questions and observations of the objects. You'll be able to use your observation skills to note how the children are using the discussion guidelines and the Oracy framework skills as they are speaking to each other. Now we see a picture of Cove Bay. If you're fortunate enough to work close to a lovely beach on the East Coast, this is an excellent provocation for learning. We should aim to be outdoors when we can and using the world around us as a provocation for learning. The forests, woods, seaside, parks, even town centres, any of these areas that are beyond the gates of the school environment can spark children's interest, which will cover a variety of learning contexts. Research tells us that children's talk and vocabulary is enhanced greatly through outdoor learning. Using only a prompt question, what do you notice? You could end up exploring the vocabulary linked to the environmental impact of the weather. Notice the levels of litter. Monitor the wildlife and evidence. Note the different types of shops on your high street. What does that tell you about the people who live here? Follow the children's particular area of interest by listening to the level of engaged talk. You can then plan with the children how the learning will develop, and you will already have a buy-in from most learners. You can also let the children explore their own particular area of interest arising from the prompt, and then this will therefore engage all learners. The children will be able, through this, to use both exploratory talk and presentational talk throughout the whole experience. As the teacher, you will be able to assess the progress of their listening and talking throughout the progression pathways, and you would use these at an appropriate level. The next two provocations could prompt questions around what is each object's use. Who might the man be? When do you think he lived? Why do you think this? You may have access to some actual objects from the era to give the sensory input for the children, which would up-level the experience significantly by developing the vocabulary to describe how they feel, what it smells, what it looks like. Perhaps lay out a quill and paper with the prompt for the children to properly get involved and be active. By having a prompt like this, you will develop the children's ability to formulate questions with appropriate vocabulary, which is part of the Oracy framework. All of these examples of rich talk prompts link directly to the four contexts of learning: interdisciplinary learning, personal achievement, ethos and life of the school, and other areas of the curriculum. Please remember that these are planned talk opportunities. We are aiming to engage rich talk opportunities throughout the day and not as a consistently timetabled 30 minutes labelled Oracy. Here is an example for you to think about. We have this photograph, and I need you to imagine that there is also some thread, needles and embroidery tools, alongside some craft straws and some Play-Doh. What do you notice about the picture? Can you tell the person beside you something more about the picture? Can you now talk about what you would like to know more about or investigate more? What relevance do the extra concrete materials have to the picture? What would you like to do with the materials and the resources? How many different areas of the curriculum can you manage to touch upon? What types of learning could be covered? And more importantly, what areas of the Oracy framework were you able to develop just through this prompt? You can see that rich talk can flow from one simple picture and a few easily acquired resources. Through this, you can develop a variety of learning opportunities which will flow from one source. Aim to build in time to investigate this with your class over the next term and try out using provocations. You will find assessment and development of next steps will be easier using the Oracy framework and the progression pathways as a guide. Thus, your provision of listening and talking experiences and interactions will be enhanced, targeted, and appropriate. Learning conversations are times that you discuss the child's learning with them, reflecting on what they did, how they felt about it, whether they found it easy or difficult, or what learning dispositions they may have used. Children can use this time to build on the child's interests, extending, questioning, allowing thinking time, making connections, introducing new vocabulary, and aiming to achieve a balance of dialogue despite the teacher who is in a position of power. Therefore, the children need to really feel comfortable to speak freely. It is a time to develop a child's understanding of what and how they're learning and the skills that they are using to develop their ideas. Learning conversations should be used when considering what aspect of a topic, for example, they would like to work on, enabling their personalisation and choice. During these conversations, which can be used throughout early learning centres and in Primary 1, it is a perfect time to discuss and develop the child's understanding of their learning dispositions. For example, you could note, I could see that you had to really concentrate, and it was great that you didn't give up, but kept trying to find a way to develop your ideas. iPads can also be very useful to support these conversations. Using Shobi to discuss previous work, the child can film themselves showing what they've been doing. The adult of the child could then take a picture of a piece of work or a model and ask the child to voice note and give details of what they did and how they did it. It's important to plan these conversations into the timetable to ensure that they happen regularly. Ensure that there are cosy spaces in the setting that encourage children to talk together and share ideas so that the children won't feel rushed and can take time to think. A time that supports reflective conversations with each child is so important.
Thank you, Lorna, for sharing your early years expertise and how good practice from early level can flow over into first and second. Learning conversations align more closely, if you remember, with exploratory talk, that messy talk that may involve challenge to explain ideas further or clarify thinking and reasoning. If we think back to the interactions in listening and talking environment, listening conversations could be adult to learner, learner to learner, or learners to adults as a group share their co-constructed learning or how they have worked collaboratively to solve a problem. Learning conversations also have that element of presentational talk, as learners are required to share or explain to a small audience. Learning conversations may be sparked by asking an authentic question, a genuine, meaningful question that can arise from new life experiences, interests, or across subject areas. They are open-ended to encourage exploratory talk and have no pre-specified right or wrong answer. An authentic question genuinely asks learners what they think. Authentic questions can be based upon any area of the curriculum and used to prompt class or group discussion. A useful framework to using authentic questions is initiate. The teacher asks the question to start the discussion. Respond. The learners share their thoughts and ideas, and feedback given by the teacher to the learner. Take a look at these questions and feedback examples. Decide if it is an authentic question and how you would feed back to the learner. Pause the video here and share your thoughts within your group and continue when you're ready. Our first question is, of course, a closed question with a right or wrong answer. The teacher could, however, ask the learner to expand their answers by asking for more detail. How do you know it's an even number? Explain what you did to find out. Feedback to our second question, which is, of course, an authentic question, affirms the learner's response and encourages them to think further or deeper. The short video that follows introduces talking point, a provocative statement to get learners talking that, unlike an authentic question, does not need to generate an answer.
Oracy education obviously consists of helping children develop the particular skills of using their voice and of listening, making themselves clear and so on, some of the physical aspects of speaking. But a really vital part of Oracy education is developing their awareness of how spoken language is used and how they use it already and how they can use it more effectively.
This is a thing called a talking point. It's a single idea, but I want your ideas about this idea, everybody's idea in the whole class.
I'm kind of agree and kind of disagree because animals are important, but we can go to school, but animals can't.
That's very important, isn't it? To do with the word important, we can't live without them, but we're important in different ways.
And when the lights begin to show up from the town, I will mark which must be mine and start down.
So the idea of talking points is that you can provide provocative statements, is how we think of them, where you introduce an idea that the children can then agree, disagree with or examine together, that can help them think productively about whatever the topic is, but they haven't got to come to a conclusive answer like a question.
A talking point can come from any area of the curriculum. It works well with the strategy fed-in facts that we looked at last session. If learners are struggling to instigate a talking point discussion, providing related facts and prompt questions at short intervals can keep the discussion going. Fed-in facts can be used to provide knowledge, address misconceptions in learning, or simply to spark ideas for deeper discussion. Take, for example, the talking point, all triangles have the same number of sides, so they must all look the same. Facts and questions can be fed to the learners to build knowledge whilst prompting discussion at the same time. Learners could also have in front of them a selection of triangles to sort as they go and could be challenged to create a triangular structure. Pause the video here for a short break and continue when you're ready. So far, we've looked at using the 4 capacities and contexts as a stimulus for listening and talking: provocations, authentic questions, and the strategy talking point. Making thinking visible routines are highly effective for embedding oracy and communication skills in the classroom, as they encourage deeper thinking on a topic or concept and encourage dialogue by providing a framework or scaffold. Making thinking visible routines work well alongside talk tactics, as each routine provides a structure for learners to engage in a type of explanatory talk, persuade, discover, discuss, for example, while the talk tactics provide the tools and strategies to engage in the discussion, offering ways to clarify, probe, or challenge ideas and opinions. Making thinking visible routines lend themselves well to the two top categories we want to focus on through the SBC Way progression pathway. Let's take a look at some of the routines to support engagement in exploratory talk. The well-used routine of think, pair, share, of course, is a good routine to generate ideas. Circle of viewpoint, a routine to encourage open-ended discussion, is useful to support making connections through exploring the views of others. See, think, wonder. This routine encourages learners to discuss open-ended, authentic questions. What makes you say that? A routine that requires learners to give reasons with evidence, perhaps to persuade. And finally, compass points. Learners explore a topic or concept from different dimensions to collaboratively solve a problem. These are only a few examples of making thinking visible routines that can support exploratory talk. More can be found by visiting the Making Thinking Visible website, where you'll find the Project Zero Thinking Routine Toolbox with lots more routines to be explored. Making thinking visible routines also provide support for presentational talk. Headlines, for instance, ask learners to summarise the main ideas of a text, topic or concept in a brief, concise headline, developing the skill of language choice and clear presentation. Step Inside supports presentational talk as it asks learners to speak from a different viewpoint, giving practice in talking to explain. I used to think, now I think supports learners to reflect on how their thinking has changed, perhaps as a result of exploratory talk experiences, again developing that ability to speak in a logical, structured way. Unlike talk tactics, which prompt discussion, the microlab is simply a routine to ensure all voices are heard in turn, with the opportunity to discuss once every member of the group has spoken. This is useful in developing the skill of time management as well as sharing organised thoughts in a clear, appropriate manner. Now that we've shared some rich talk approaches and strategies, take some time to reflect on what you have heard. Pause the video here and continue when you're ready. In the last session, we looked at the benefits of using sentence stems and talk tactics to scaffold talk, allowing learners to focus on formulating the response rather than worrying about how to begin. Pause the video here and have a think about each sentence stem. Which talk type do they best suit? Continue when you're ready. As we engage in the different rich talk approaches, sentence stems again are a useful way to support and scaffold discussion. Take, for example, the picture of the terracotta warriors as a provocation that we saw earlier. Learners might be asked to describe or discuss. Talk-type sentence stems could be used as a scaffold to initiate the discussion, while talk-tactic stems could be used to build and continue the discussion. More sentence stems to support talk types can be found in the support documents on the Launchpad. It is, however, important to say that despite their usefulness, the sentence stems provided are not exhaustive. Learners will soon develop their own phrases and preferences. Sentence stems are just the scaffold to get them started. Whilst experiences like provocations, authentic questions and talking points all take forward thought, there are few class quick wins that can be incorporated into daily routines to help embed oral communication skills. Pause the video for a few moments and take a look at these quick wins. More can be found in the class activity guidance on the Launchpad. Finally, for this session, we'll take a look at the SBC Way Planning Toolkit, which is designed to help you get the most out of the SBC Way progression pathways and to evoke deeper thinking around the planning process. Where it is possible, the SBC Way advocates a holistic, joined-up approach to the experiences planned for our learners. The toolkit provides guidance as to how this could be approached. This is a snapshot of planning across the year and how we can link together aspects of literacy, creating a holistic, joined-up approach by linking writing, reading and listening and talking, with the learners writing in the style they are reading, reading in the style they are writing, and the focus of listening and talking being supportive for both, all possible within one of the four contexts for learning. further block plan helps to create links within the four contexts, in this case linking literacy and an IDL focus on World War II, showing how all three literacy aspects are linked with the subject knowledge behind World War II. The statements in bold come from the SBC Way reading, writing and listening and talking progression pathways. Listening and talking strategies such as talk tactics, class organisation need not necessarily be planned, for they become the norm. Whilst, as we've heard, there are many opportunities where talk occurs naturally, it is important to plan talk to ensure the explicit teaching of the pathway, skills and strategies. It might also be useful at this point to plan in the rich talk experiences, provocations, authentic questions, talking point, making thinking visible routines, learning conversation that you want to use. Before the next session, consider your own practice, thinking about your next planning block. Use the documents from the SBC Way Planning Toolkit in the supporting resource file alongside the example and plan your next block of work with a literacy focus. For now, as we approach the end of the session, let's recap on what's been covered. During this session, we have highlighted again the significance of the four capacities, linking them to how they can be developed through listening and talking, and how we can use the four contexts of learning as a stimulus for this. Digital tools also play a big part in our SBC Way, so hopefully you'll now know how they can be used to support listening and talking and have signposts to further input into how to use some of the tools and applications available to us. Although talk can and does happen naturally across our setting, it is important so we can develop the specific oral communication skills that our SBC Way pathway asks for, that talk is also planned. Hopefully you now have some ideas of talk-rich experiences you can incorporate into your practice and some more quick wins you can try out with your learners. And finally, the SBC Way Planning Toolkit is there to support planning across the curriculum. Please engage with this and be prepared to share your experiences at the next session. Pause the video here and take some time to consider today's content. What would be your three main takeaways? Tomorrow, what might you do different in your classroom? And if time allows, begin on your literacy planning. Share within your group and continue when you're ready. This video interaction session is part of a new approach we are introducing in an attempt to support all schools and all practitioners across SBC to engage with the same message and activities, but at an individually convenient time. By providing video content with in-person facilitators in each school, whilst not the same as a full live session, we can achieve widespread learning. Your feedback on how to maximise this approach is really valuable. Over the sessions so far, we have looked at what Oracy is and why we need to teach it, talk categories and talk types, and today's input has hopefully given you some ideas on how to embed oral communication skills through talk-rich experiences and how to plan for them, building up our overall understanding to the methodology behind the SBC Way listening and talking progression pathway. Our next session will look at ways in which we can explicitly teach vocabulary through all elements of literacy and across all areas of the curriculum. All that's left to say now is thank you for your time today. Here's to making a difference to the lives and learning of our children and young people.